Welcome everyone to Business Ethics and Corporate Social Responsibility course. This is our first unit, and today we are going to learn about business and social challenges. You already know José Félix Lozano, which is the other teacher of this course. I'm the new one. My name is Marta Rodriguez Coronel. I'm an adjunct professor in the Department of Engineering Projects at this university, like Felix, the other teacher. And my research is focused on business ethics, human rights, foundations, and other type of NGOs. I hope I can help you to understand better at least this field, and whatever you need, you can write me an email and I will try to help you in the best way possible. This is the first unit of the course. In this lesson, we are going to talk about three main topics. What is business for? The public role of companies, and the relation between the concepts business, economy, and ethics. To discover the purpose of business activity, we are interested in the concept of practice. And following McIntyre, a contemporary English philosopher, we will understand practice as any coherent and complex form of social established cooperative human activity, through which the goods inherent to it are achieved while at the same time trying to achieve the models of excellence that are appropriate to that form of activity. In addition, this would entail a secondary effect. In seeking those inherent goods and those models of excellence, they would systematically extend not only in the practice itself, but in the society. We will point out for now that business practice is in fact a cooperative and social human activity that requires the organization of different people and different stakeholders to achieve its goals, because it is historically and legally recognized in our societies. The inherent goods mentioned in McIntyre's definition of practice are two types. On the one hand, there are the external and contingent goods of the activity due to the social circumstance. A characteristic of these is that they can be obtained from different practices, among which we can cite fame, reputation, money, power, and so on. On the other hand, we have the internal goods. These can only be obtained by committing to a particular type of practice and are identified when participated in said practice. For example, in educational practice, the internal good would be training in culture and the transfer of knowledge. In health practice, it would be the healing of the sick. In engineering practice, it would be the creation of useful and safe technological products respecting the autonomy of people. And in business practice, this would be the satisfaction of needs through products and services that are fair and products and services of also good quality. So in this sense, the purpose of a company is social, since every company is created to provide society with products and services with justice and quality that legitimize its existence. If society does not accept the products that the company produces, it loses its social recognition. Or, on the contrary, if the company does not produce those goods, society can claim them. Even when now we could say that that is the purpose of business, not every company behaves according to that general aim, which that is, provide society with products and services that they need with justice and quality. Here are a few examples of bad practices that demonstrate how even a business has private property, its impacts will be always public impacts that affects a lot of people, not only its shareholders. Gazprom dominates the gas supply in Eastern Europe. In a quasi-monopolistic manner. It is not difficult to argue that the Russian company leaves few options for the competition and uses its position to impose quotas, schedules, and prices, overstepping its economic role into the realm of geopolitics because the Kremlin is the majority shareholder. Now let's go and to the other side of the war. One of the chapters of the war in Colombia that most needs justice and truth is the one that has to do with the financing of groups outside the law by companies and multinationals. And if there is a representative case in the country of this shady relationship, is the one that Chiquita brands stirred in the late 90s in the Urabá region in Colombia. International investigators, a report from the Organization of American States, OAS, and even a United States court were responsible for revealing how, for more than 10 years, the North American Fruit Company financed paramilitary groups such as FARC and ELN. Now, we could name an example from Africa. A report by the United Nations Environment Programme, UNEP, established that Shell Petroleum Development Company of Nigeria, a company that is part of the multinational Royal Dutch Shell, paid a compensation equivalent to 70 million euros to the community of fishermen and farmers in Nigeria who were affected by 2 oil spills in 2008 and 2009. However, there have been more than 6,800 oil spills recorded, that is between 9 and 30 million barrels, and the Niger Delta region is one of the most polluted on the planet. Returning to America, but now North America, we have the case of Lehman Brothers. The company founded in 1985 by Kenneth Lay experienced a before and after with the arrival of Jeffrey Skilling, sentenced to 24 years in prison. Skilling was one of the best graduates at Harvard in his MBA class. He landed at Enron in 1997. With him, the company discovered in all its expression what accounting engineering is: liabilities that became assets, loans that were counted as income, fake debts, inflated profits. In the eyes of the accountant, everything was close to perfect. Less expected was the fall of its auditor. Enron took down Arthur Andersen, one of the 5 most important auditors in the world at that time. BP, Deepwater Horizon, was a semi-submersible rapid positioning oil platform in ultra-deep waters built in 2001 and located in the Gulf of Mexico, shared by United States, Cuba, and Mexico itself. It sank on April 22 of 2010 as a result of an explosion that had taken place 2 days earlier, causing the largest oil spill in the history, estimated at 800,000 tons of crude oil. Even here in Europe, we have a huge scandal also, which is Siemens scandal. Until the end of 1999, bribes to foreign leaders were not only not a crime in Germany, but could be deducted as extraordinary expenses up to 10% in tax returns without receipts. Since 2002, bribes to other people have also been penalized, even if they didn't hold public office. The legal situation has changed since 2002, but Siemens didn't change his bad practices. The corruption scandal that hit Siemens at the end of 2006 cost the company more than 1.5 billion euros. Two former employees of German Electronics Group were sentenced to between 6 and 15 years of prison. 7 of the convicted are German, including Heinrich von Peter, the chairman of Siemens from 1992 to 2005. Here in Spain, sadly, we have the case of Zara, the clothing store. In 2017, the Spanish multinational Zara paid more than 1.3 billion euros in Brazil as part of a new agreement signed with the Public Prosecutor Office for a case of slave labor registered in 2011. In that year, a total of 15 workers who produced clothes for the firm were rescued in degrading conditions, according to the Brazilian Ministry of Employment. The case was uncovered in May 2015 by the NGO Reporter Brazil. In addition to this case of slave labor, Zara's opaque area is its taxation. For this, you can review, for example, the reports that have been released by a Spanish CSR observatory. Now, to understand who is responsible for what, we have to analyze the agents themselves. States were traditionally responsible for the public sphere and for promoting human rights. Markets and companies were responsible for generating economic value, and the third sector was responsible for social integration. However, today this has changed. Public responsibility is no longer equivalent to state responsibility. Although states continue to be the most responsible, they are not the only agents responsible for this task. We now speak of a globalized civil society, of which companies form an essential part. As we just talked about in those bad practices cases, the responsibility is not only held by the state, but also must be held by companies because they are impacting our society in positive, but at the same time in so many negative ways. In our civic organizations, or NGOs, must also push the state to take their accountability, and also these organizations must push the companies to do the due diligence and to improve the way that they produce the goods and services that provide us. Besides the specific bad behaviors of companies, there are major global phenomena that affect and are in turn affected by all actors, and companies, of course, are no exceptions. In some cases, companies have contributed to the development of these phenomena, such as climate change or inequality. As we have been insisting, companies also have public responsibility, even if they have private property. They have a public responsibility for the impacts they generate and by which they are in turn influenced and transformed. For example, pandemics, cultural diversity, poverty, wars, globalization, and so on. As just said, business has private property, but its impacts has always been public effect because affects employees, consumers, suppliers, entire communities, and of course the shareholders. The responsibility of the state is now a shared responsibility with civil society and especially business. Why? Among other reasons, because business has a lot of power, therefore has a bigger responsibility than NGOs, because NGOs, for example, that have tiny budgets compared with companies that has bigger budgets. Increase in the interdependence implies a reduction in the independence of the states, companies, and social groups to achieve the development they would like to achieve. The actions of some groups are greatly influenced by other groups anywhere in the world, and their consequences are also decisive for the lives of other people everywhere. And last but not least, the increasing global activism by civil society has led a huge impact in the stock market and also in the specific business behavior. For example, Sea Shepherd ships have saved thousands of whales from being hunted by the Japanese whaling fleet, or the boycotts of companies like Nike for using immigrant or child labor. If we need guidance, ethics is one of the ways to approach to our big social problems. There is a link between economy, business, and ethics. Like all human activity, the economy also has an ethical dimension. So we cannot talk about economics without talking about its ethical implications. Each practice will have an applied ethic that guides it. That is, a study of what the internal and external goods are and what the models of excellence to follow would be, as we have seen in previous slides. This is what we call applied ethics. The first applied ethics was bioethics, which is the study of ethical issues related to health and including those emerging from advances in technology, medicine, and biology. The second was business ethics. We explain it in the next slide. And we have ethics for almost every human activity. The latest ones are neuroethics, artificial intelligence ethics, and influencer ethics. Thus, the economy has its ethics. Economic ethics is responsible for reflecting on economic systems like free market, planned economy, mixed economy, and so on. That is a macro ethic, an ethic of large systems. The company also has a specific ethic that deals with reflecting on business activity and the instruments that it must develop to generate responsible and sustainable businesses. That is called business ethics, which is a meso or middle ethic. I mean, an ethic of organizations. Inside the ethical analysis of business ethics, we found CSR, corporate social responsibility, a way of doing business, as we will see in further units of this course. And professionals in any field also have their ethics, professional ethics, which is located at the micro or individual level. That's all for today. We will see you soon in another lesson. Bye.